Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Bickle, we just received an email that he'll be running a few minutes late. Commissioner Daniels. Commissioner Donahue.
Here.
Commissioner Gorley. Here. Commissioner Kong.
Here.
Commissioner Lindley.
Here.
Commissioner Oglesby.
Here.
Commissioner Velasquez. Vice Chair Leffel.
Here.
Chair Rudascu.
Here.
And for the record, Commissioner Lopez is excused. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We will, I don't have an agenda in front of me, but I believe we're going into closed session for one item at the front of the meeting. Thank you. Going into closed session at the front of the meeting. So let's, we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Jeff, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today? Thanks. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry. All right. So I guess we'll do general public comments before we go into closed session as it's agendized. So for general public comment for things that are within the purview of LAFCO, but not otherwise listed on our agenda today.
Check. There we go. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Bill Leip, and I'm speaking to the recently completed round one voting process for the Independent Special District regular seat. Took place last month. I'm not here to relitigate the result, but I do believe round one raised process concerns that should not be ignored going forward. During that round, I personally observed irregularities across district meetings, including agenda items that were difficult to verify, action apparently taken where the LAFCO item was not clearly noticed, and procedural confusion during motions and deliberation. And since round one concluded, at least one district has now indicated that its round one vote should be withdrawn because of Brown Act issues. I mention that carefully only because it underscores that these concerns were not abstract. I also took note of Commissioner Leffel's comment last month upon being sworn in, where she described the process as very interesting, noted involvement behind the scenes, and observed that in some cases minds appeared to be made up because of outside sources. I think it is fair to say that in light of the outcome and the unusually concentrated voting pattern in round one, those remarks do not read as entirely neutral observations. I'm not asking the Commission today to revisit round one. I'm asking that LAFCO consider clear guidance, training, and best practice procedures for future independent special district elections. These seats really do matter. The districts matter. They're very important. And the public should be able to trust that votes are properly noticed, openly deliberated, and independently decided. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Is there any other public comment, general public comment in the room today? Anyone online?
Chair, we do have a hand raised on Zoom. Or we did. Let's check to make sure.
And this would be general public comment for items within the purview of this commission, but not otherwise posted on this agenda.
So Matt Huerta has his hand raised, and I've allowed him to speak. If you're unmuted, please provide your public comment.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Matt Huerta, Senior Advisor with the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. I want to briefly speak in support of the continued progress reflected in your work program, particularly as it relates to the Vista Lucia specific plan area. Projects like Vista Lucia are important not only for the city of Gonzales, but for the broader Monterey Bay region, with the potential to deliver up to approximately 3,500 homes over the next few decades. This project represents the kind of long-term housing opportunity our region needs to support workforce stability, economic growth, and community sustainability. We recognize that LAFCO plays a critical role in ensuring thoughtful and orderly growth, From a regional housing perspective, continued progress through the annexation and review process is essential to maintaining momentum on projects of this scale. We appreciate the inclusion of Vista Lucia in your work program and respectfully encourage continued timely progress as the application advances. The sooner this stage of the process can be completed, the sooner the project's developers can get shovels in the ground and move toward creating much needed housing for South County residents. Thank you for your time and leadership.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Chair, no hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think that last item, what item number was that, Reed?
Looks like number 6.
Number 6. I think that will be covered in number 6 of our agenda today, but thank you for the comment. Any other public comment? None? Okay, we'll close general public comment and bring it back to the board. We have a closed session at the start of our meeting today. We have one item listed under closed session, and I'll ask for any public comment on our closed session before we recess into closed session. Seeing no one in chambers, is there any online?
Chair, no hands are raised on
No
Zoom.
hands are raised. Okay, all right, thank you. We'll close public comment on our closed session items. Recess briefly for closed session discussion, and then we'll be back here for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you. meeting of Monday, April 27, 2026. Could we do a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Bickle?
Here.
Commissioner Daniels?
Present.
Commissioner Donahue?
Here.
Commissioner Gorley? Commissioner Kong?
Here.
Commissioner Lindley?
Here.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Here.
Commissioner Velasquez? Vice Chair Leffel?
Here.
Chair Rudascu? And for the record, Commissioner Lopez is excused. Chair, we have a quorum.
Fantastic, thank you. We didn't lose anyone between a back room and walking back out again. All right, we will ask if there's any announcements from closed session by our general counsel.
No reportable action.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our special business today. The first is to consider a resolution declaring the 2026 selection results of the Independent Special District Selection Committee for a LAFCO alternate member representative. And I'll pass the floor to our EO.
Right. Thank you, Chair. This item and the next related items will be presented by our Associate Analyst, Jeff Condit.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, today we're considering a resolution declaring the 2026 results of a process by the Independent Special District Selection Committee to select an alternate member representative to LAFCO. Following the distribution of this agenda packet, LAFCO staff received several emails from alternate special district member candidate Bill Leip regarding his request that LAFCO preserve all independent special district ballot records and refrain from taking action on this item due to concerns he had with district-level public notice issues and hoping that those would be reviewed and resolved. The four districts that he has concerns with include the Castroville Cemetery District, the Gonzales Cemetery District, Salinas Valley Health District, and San Lucia Community Service District. So this afternoon, or this morning, we had sent out a supplemental memo describing the situation and the concerns with these four districts. As noted, Mr. Leip stated that he could not identify a properly noticed agenda item, public meeting items, or comparable governing body board action authorizing the respective district's LAFCO ballot for the alternate special district seat. And we included those emails from Mr. Leip in the supplemental memo. However, according to the ISD-SC Commissioner Selection Process and Criteria, board action is not required to make a selection. The process outlines that votes are to be made by each ISD's presiding officer or their designated ISD representative. As such, LAFCO staff collects and tallies the ballots based on each ISD presiding officer or the designated representative vote. Following our review on April 23rd, LAFCO staff did receive communication from the Salinas Valley Memorial Healthcare District and the San Lucia Community Service District. And although they disagreed that any Brown Act violation occurred, after reviewing whether their CEO or district manager had been given authority to act as their designated representative, both districts requested to withdraw their ballots for the alternate special district selection process on the advice of their district councils. After updating the tally due to the rescission of those two ballots, the overall ballot tally for the alternate special district member candidate, David Kong, is 12 ballots, and Bill Leip ballot count remains unchanged at 10 ballots. With this tally, candidate David Kong received the majority of ballots. LAFCO General Counsel and staff are recommending that to proceed with agenda item number 2, declaring the 2026 selection results of the Independent Special District Selection Committee. Also proceeding with agenda item number 3, related item. Further, we're recommending that the Commission request that the ISD-SC Committee update the selection process and criteria originally approved on June 13th, 2002. The update is intended to clarify that any deliberation, designation of voting representatives, or other in the ballot selection of LAFCO representatives are to occur during open session and agendized meetings where direction is provided by each district's governing board or practice. We realize that there have been some, there is room for improvement, and we feel that potentially the trainings that we're going to be pursuing in the next fiscal year or other opportunities would be a great way to pursue these best practices. On a related note, the rescission of the ballots from Salinas Valley Health District and San Lucia Community Service District will impact the tally, though not the results, of the regular special district seat. The commission may direct staff to bring a revised resolution to the next commission meeting to update the regular special district election tally. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Chair, and staff is available for any questions.
Thank you for putting all that together into the memo that was sent out so that we can all track all of that level of detail with a lot of detail in what you just reviewed. I am going to let's do public comment first, and then we'll bring it back to the board. So with that, we'll open it up for public comment.
This is item 2, right? Yeah. All that said about how that things can be designated, my communication was about on a very narrow issue. These things were never publicly noticed. That is a Brown Act violation. And I did speak with a representative at the hospital who acknowledged it was a Brown Act violation. So and there's 2 in question that haven't probably responded at all. The Gonzales Cemetery District, I don't know what they did. They noticed a meeting for April 8th. There's a handwritten note at the cemetery district office saying that they canceled the meeting. There was no LAFCO item on there. And when you go to the American Legion on 5th Street, there's absolutely not a single space to post a public notice. So, you know, gasoline at $5 a gallon, driving around, I made several trips to Greenfield on some very loopy things that happened down there. You know, not all of us have the resources to put gas in our cars and drive around all over the place, which I did in round 1 and round 2. And then I'm not going to drive to a meeting where there's no notice or there's no agenda item, because that's basic, like ABC 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of Brown Act stuff. So I don't know how you can move this forward when there's 2 that have been pulled, regardless of whatever their explanation was. They were pulled, and one of them pulled round 1, or both of them pulled round 1, apparently. And we have 2 that are outstanding. So that would, if those 2 don't come through and prove that they actually acted within the Brown Act and what is considered law for all these districts, then I don't know how you can move this forward. I really don't. And there's no rush to absolutely have to do it this month. You move the public member appointment that was going to happen last month to this month. You certainly have that authority. And I would just respectfully ask, let this thing get cleared up before you move it forward. The swearing in is ultimately just a ceremonial thing based on a result. And right now the result is, in my mind, based on all the research I've done, is unknown. So I really don't know how you can move forward. There are Brown Act issues, and I guess if I have to, I'll pursue those on my own, because I've been out here on my own for 2 months battling some very strange, weird occurrences at meetings where people just seem to, yeah, I agree with you, Marianne, they just seem to be dialed in to vote who they're going to vote for with no consideration, no objectivity, and no independence. So I'd appreciate you tabling this item and the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on this item number 2? Anyone online?
Chair Askew, no hands are raised on Zoom.
We're going to close public comment and bring it back to this board. Oh, would staff like to respond? Is there additional information?
We don't have additional information at this time. The 2 outstanding districts have not responded.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we'll bring it back to the board for, look for eye contact or motion. Okay, we'll go Gorley and then Daniels.
In years past, had both of those special districts replied and voted?
My understanding is yes, they have. Are you saying have they voted in a public meeting?
I mean, are they are they attentive? Do they get back to the LAFCO staff when they reached out to them, and we don't have any idea why they haven't responded?
That's correct. Yes, you typically do respond.
Thank you. So I'm trying to understand, it sounds like from the statute, the presiding officer is able to make this vote, but I don't imagine that the statute says that the presiding officer is a free agent and they get to vote however they want. I think the assumption must be, even if there isn't a meeting that takes place, that the presiding officer is acting on behalf somehow of the will of the body. I'm assuming it's either in the bylaws or somewhere that there's been some process set about, because it also just sounds like the process is that the presiding officer is supposed to sign the document. It's part of the voting process. So I'm wondering if you think there might be some, I'm not going to suggest confusion, but almost like a manipulation of the system. I mean, if presiding officers are acting on their own and they haven't had a publicly noticed meeting, then, and they don't have some other way to know what the will of the board is before making that determination, I think it sounds like the process is not unfolding as it was intended to. Council, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
So I have to say that the text of the statute is pretty clear. And while you might normally expect to see a representative of a legislative body carrying forward the will of that body in casting a vote, that's not what the law requires. In this case, the presiding officer has sole, independent, unilateral discretion to cast a vote for whoever they want. So although that might not comport with some of the processes that other legislative bodies use, that's what the law provides. There is a possibility that some of these some of these other legislative bodies, not LAFCO, have a policy or a rule, like you could set your own rule.
Yeah.
Although my JPA says we have to do it this way, we're going to make a special rule that's not going to break that rule, but it's going to give some clarity. You could do that at all those special districts level, but absent one of those policies existing, those independent presiding officers, they don't have to have that discussed at a board meeting to cast their vote. It may be a unique feature of LAFCO. I will agree, LAFCO is very unique, but that is what the text of the statute and then the case law around it provides.
So when you suggest, and it sounds like this was part of the presentation, that in the future there could be a better process, is that something that could come from LAFCO that each of those special districts would then have to comply with?
I pointed to staff because we talked about this, but I'll keep answering the question, which is if you look at the supplemental memo, it is one of the recommendations is to recommend to these through the independent special district selection committee to those members to have a process that provides a Brown Act meeting where that topic is discussed before the presiding officer does count their vote, to allow and to increase and enhance that transparency and participation, even though the statute doesn't call for it. So that was one of the things that was threaded into the last memo that was added late to your agenda packet. Is a recommendation to take that as an item to pass on to our independent special district selection committee.
And I hope it would be as clear as publicly a posted meeting,
yes,
agendized on the agenda. So I am having a hard time understanding then why two special districts withdrew their votes if it's that clear in the statute.
I can appreciate the confusion because this is an excellent law school quiz question. And the reality is those independent districts may have committed, and I don't want to say that they did break the Brown Act, because although it seems pretty clear you can't discuss something that's not on the agenda, that's very, very clear. In order to have a Brown Act violation, with big air quotes around it, under the law as defined, you also have to have a final action that that legislative body has control over. Because the code says the presiding officer can do whatever they want, even if there's a Brown Act meeting and the legislative body said, we all vote that you're going to assign your ballot to this person, that they can show up at that meeting and cast it however they like, because they're not obligated to by the law. That creates a problem for the district, because they may have, in many ways, half broken the Brown Act, right? They had an item that was discussed that shouldn't have been, because it wasn't noticed for people who would want to share and give their input to it. So I can appreciate being that other agency saying, rather than have any appearance of impropriety or any doubt, we're going to just withdraw our vote. We'll clean that up in the future as a way to save face, as also to be, an abundance of caution to protect against any accusations of a Brown Act violation. I don't know that you could actually litigate one in this case, but the point is well made. If you're having a discussion at a legislative body and it's not on the agenda, that's a problem that needs to be fixed.
So do we think that any of these special districts had a conversation about this vote and it wasn't agendized? Statute aside.
I don't know. I'm looking to our staff because they have the details about each of those 4 districts and what did happen each one.
Not that we're aware of.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll just leave it and wait to hear from my colleagues.
Just a couple questions. I appreciate this this issue being brought up, right? But I just want to put a couple things on the record here. We're here at LAFCO are not saying we believe Brown Act violations happen, are we? I just want to be clear, right? Because we need to be clear about our responsibility. So I'm right. Okay. And then these special districts are not subordinate to us in any way, are they?
No, I meant subordinate within this hearing.
No, I got you. Because my next point is, when we suggest down the road that they can change their process, we cannot mandate what process they have. We can suggest the so-called best practice, but the law says that their executive director can cast a vote as they choose so fit, and maybe they should update their bylaws or policies to be able to weigh in on that. I just want to be clear, we cannot mandate that they change or do anything, because some of them may not want to change, right? And I don't want the public to believe that we're going to tell them exactly how to come up with that process. And so that was really what I wanted, because I think the staff and the legal counsel did such a good job answering those concerns that were brought to us with their response memo about what we can do and what we can't do. That I just want to put out there that we're not agreeing that any Brown Act violations happen. And then even though these 2 districts did not get back with us, I don't know if there was a requirement to get back with us, right? They don't even have to sit in a vote, let alone, and then my last thing is, we don't have a say over their so-called processes, particularly in this matter. But I do agree that we should share some best practices with them.
So this is one reason why the Budget Finance Committee asked to put $25,000 in for training for the districts. That it was all over the board, and I think next time we can do A, B, C, D. One of the questions that came up from one of the districts that withdrew the vote was, is the presiding officer the general manager, executive director, CEO, or is it the chair of the board? And I think that was a misinterpretation by a couple of the districts. They withdrew. But I think, we just maybe need just to spill it out a little bit better and go from there. But I agree with Commissioner Oglesby. They don't report to us. They don't work for us. They don't do anything. So I think the best thing we can do is help. And I know that Mr. Leip had said in one of the interviews that we were in, the question was he had filled out his application for the alternate, that he was interested in the alternate position. And he said, no, I'm interested in the regular. It was just a little confusing in the direction. So maybe we just really take a good look. We're going to have another one in 2028. So make a good attempt to really clean it up and make sure that we're following all the rules. And I don't know what else to do, because they were all over. And only 22 out of 41 voted on this, and I think 31 out of 41 voted.
In the first round, 30 voted.
30.
Yes,
so, there are some that just won't even vote. They don't care enough about it. They don't have enough meetings. They don't have enough people on their boards to even get a quorum. So anyway, I think we can work through it and really give people the tools they need to do it right. And I don't think it was of malice. I just think it's just how they do it. So.
Well, I think the comment I would make, in light of everything we've heard, the fact that waited an additional month, the staff, and it sounds like the staff had some conversations with legal counsel as well, it basically says to me everything's been considered. The recommendation is to essentially call for the question so we can settle it, and then I think it's fairly clear there's room for improvement in the process, and I think certainly the board, without voting on it, it's implied, provide direction to, let's make sure we can get out in front of it, because I think Marianne also pointed out something else. We would, I would certainly agree with Mr. Light. This is important, and we want to get out in front of that and say, hey, please participate in the process. But at this moment, all things being considered, staff recommendation, I think it's important to call for the question. I'm happy to make a motion to support staff's recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
Chair, if I could just ask a couple more questions.
We have a motion from Donahue, a second from Leffel, and I would love to comment as well, but I'll go to Daniels.
Just really want to ask a quick question about how did we get in the process where we're working with the special districts to ensure they do things like fill out a Form 700? What process was that? And that's an item, I believe it's on today's agenda that we're getting an update, but we've engaged with special districts at that level to ensure transparency exists. How did that come about?
Do we have all those staff?
I can address that question. So, and we'll address it more when that item is later on the agenda. But essentially, we had 4 municipal service reviews in the last 2.5 years. Identified areas of where corrective measures were needed to comply with state laws. And so they were identified in the municipal service review. Part of the recommendations to the commission was to direct staff to work with the special districts to essentially cure those items.
And can you just help me by directing me to the statute that that allows for the presiding officer to vote on behalf of the special, to submit a vote on behalf of the special district?
We'll give that to Reed.
Reed, yes.
Government Code Section 56332.
56332. Okay. Thank you.
Great. And I just have a couple questions. So I think it would have been helpful to see that statute. It was a copy of it to, if it is interpretation that we're looking at or trying to navigate, I would love a chance to review that. So there's 2 districts that have yet to respond. If those 2 districts were to respond in the same way that the first 2 districts responded and pulled their vote, what does that leave? The vote count would then be 10-10?
That's correct. And the 2 that have not responded were signed by their presiding officer.
Okay, so of the 4 that were that there were questions raised on. 2 of them withdrew their vote from this particular set of voting. The other 2 haven't gotten back to us yet. So if they were to get back to LAFCO next week and pull their votes, does that change the outcome of the election? Since we're not, as a LAFCO, voting on we don't vote for it, we're just taking the votes that come, does that change the outcome of what happens?
That would. The other issue is that it would take us below a quorum.
It would take us below a quorum.
That's correct.
Okay, in which case, what would happen if we fell below a quorum?
We would need to restart this process.
We would redo the process. Okay. So I think that's, for me, an important point, and that if we were to not take action today, we would have there would be time for those 2 districts to determine what they're doing or not doing, and then we would be able to take this up with clarity a month from now, without having that lack of clarity about what the actual outcome was.
That's correct.
Okay. So my next question was about the quorum, and then going back to Reed, you referenced the CKH statute that could be less clear, and then local LAFCO policy. Is there a LAFCO policy that guides our elections, or it's just the special districts policies?
Yes. It is just the special districts policy and the state code.
Just the special districts policy and the state code.
Well, LAFCO can't adopt a policy that the other districts would have to follow. They have to adopt their own.
And then you mentioned case law, and I would be, I think, also interested in understanding what case law exists on this particular situation, or this, if there were similar situations. So from where I sit, without knowing the CKH legislation, what that actually says, knowing what the case law says, and what I have, I think, heard and understand is that this all has emerged only recently, very quickly here, and so I'm hesitant to take action on something that could become so swearing someone in and then have that become a null and void action. I think it doesn't do a lot to instill trust in our body. So my final comments, I think, are just the decisions that this LAFCO hears and the votes that we take have consequential, are significant to, even though people may not understand what we're here doing, there is significance to our work and our decisions. And I think it's important that the individuals who serve on our LAFCO board, that there's no question either for us or for the public as to the legitimacy of those appointments or the processes that brought us into service on LAFCO. And because when there's questions about the legitimacy of who serves on LAFCO or how we got appointed to LAFCO, that, by next step, what calls into question the legitimacy of some of the decisions that we're making, it could. And so taking that really seriously, I'm not comfortable moving forward today until we figure out what's going on with those other 2 districts. So and I hope that's clear. And I just also want to say, David, I really enjoy working with you. And so this is about, for me, a process issue that is around how we maintain legitimacy of the commission.
Chair.
And the work we do. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And I just want to I'm not going to be able to support this motion. And I just also want to be very clear is that anyone who's an elected official, I think, understands very clearly what the intent of any member of a public board making a decision, that the intent is that it's on behalf of the board. I think that's an expectation, even if there is something that's silent in a statute. I don't think it's a statute that reads that the presiding officer is a free agent and they can do whatever they want. I think it's a situation haven't read the statute, but I think it's a situation where they're silent on something. So if this is something that's not explicitly stated, then a presiding officer is essentially going around what I think the expectation would be, that a public board, if someone's making a vote and filing a vote, it would be a vote on behalf of that board. And my question is whether or not that board has had any mechanism for declaring what their intent was. And so I think it's a problem. I think it sounds like that we are making a decision today because one member would have won anyway. And that doesn't help with faith in what we do as elected officials, as appointed members of this body. I think that's more important. And if there's an opportunity to wait a month and drill down and understand it better, I would support that. But, you know, with the vote today, I won't be able to support it.
Cindy?
Yeah, please.
I'll make my own substitute motion.
Okay, we've got a substitute motion coming at us.
To go ahead and whether it needs to be a motion or not, to go ahead and wait a month and defer it. The thing I do want to say is this frankly, particularly in a close race, is not a great process. And there was a delay, which is fine. Staff considered it, and so I appreciate what everyone's saying. But when you have kind of a, let's say we agree a process that's clearly not perfect, it's not likely to be perfect tomorrow, though if you're down to check with two folks, that's fine. But at some point, the question may have to be called for in this go-around with what's clearly not a great process. So my intent was simply to support staff recommendation, who I believe had considered it and made a recommendation to this body. But if there's not comfort, obviously we all want to protect the integrity of who sits here. But my intent was at some point, whether it's this month or next month, I think we could all agree we're going to have to call for the question.
100%. The delay was the last vote. Wasn't this vote.
So your
So the second agrees.
Okay, so I was going to say so the second agrees, and the substitute motion of the motion, or if you just withdrew, however we do that.
I never spoke.
Okay, except you did, to make a substitute motion. So is to delay a month and bring this back a month from now when we have some clarity on some of these questions that have been asked. Okay, and the second holds.
Second.
Okay.
Chair, can you clarify the delay? Because that wasn't for this item, I believe, Mayor. It was for the public member.
For the public, yeah, for the public matter.
It was the delay of a month, not this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're going to be voting to put this one on next month's agenda to get the answers to the questions. Okay. Is staff clear on the motion that's in front of us? Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, on the question. Is it, we're talking about the substitute? I just want to be clear. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it, but what are we asking staff to do? Because what I don't want us to do is involve ourselves with those special districts process and try to weigh in on what they're doing. There's no requirement for them to change their process. There's no requirement for them to turn in a ballot or to talk to us. And so we're waiting for what? Because someone said something about getting staff to do something, answer some questions. I thought that's what the chair said. Yeah. What are the questions we're trying to get answered?
The questions that I asked were for a copy of the statute, for information about relevant case law. Those were the questions that I would help me. And then there'd be time to hear back from these other folks. More than a day or two is what I'm understanding. This information was all provided to us, in the last couple days. Yep. Gorley.
So I would like to clarify that. Instead of us reaching out to just the two that have not responded or withdrew, you said they withdrew. There's two more. You said Gonzalez and one other, right? That you reached out to. I would reach out to the remaining of the special districts that have not replied with their votes.
That period is closed.
That period is closed.
Can you comment on that?
But how could you say if it's closed?
That's right.
If we're going back out and asking these two members for their vote?
No, we're not. Yeah, well, to the chair, through the,
Yeah, through the chair, I will try to answer part of that question. the ballot period, the period to submit a signed ballot ended last Monday. And so there is no opportunity now for any of those other districts to submit a ballot. So
then how are we still in flux with 2 members?
And I can restate my comment, was so that there were 4 ballots that were brought into question. 2 of those agencies withdrew their ballot to cure the question. 2 of the others have not responded when asked for additional information about your ballots are in question. And so my question was, if those 2 additional ballots get pulled, then we lose quorum of total voting, and it calls into question that, so we would be taking action today, and then potentially those 2 agencies come back and say, oh, we're withdrawing our ballot as well, because this was just brought up. And so if that happened, we would lose quorum, and the appointment would be like, there'd be question about the validity of the appointment that we just made. So that's what I'm saying. Like, let's allow time for them to respond if they're going to, or change, rather than having a day or 2 to do so. But that's what a month allows us.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be for legal, is if we've already passed the voting date and they withdraw their vote, that's it. It's over. That's in my head.
I mean, it's a different question then.
I'm pretty simple, but
yeah.
I have a similar concern about the 2 out of the 4. We understand, 2 pulled theirs, and I think you probably have the legal right to pull yours if you, but if they have not pulled theirs, what I'm getting to is, how long do we wait for them to say, for the other 2, the remaining 2 in question? And I guess this is the legal. What the law says, the presiding officer can turn it in, right? And so who, other than the person that turned it in, can dispute that if there's no process in that special district disputing it? And that's right. I know I'm right. And so I just want to get to that point where that's the crux, right? And so we should not be trying to, again, tell them their procedure. That's all I'm getting to, General Counsel. Tell them their procedure. But I support the delay, but I don't want no shenanigans in the background. All right.
All right, we have a motion. Can I add one thing for Reed, for council? Could you also, when bringing the statute back, it's clear that the law is silent on the intent part, the expectation part, but is the law silent, the statute, on how the presiding officer is supposed to come to the determination of who they support? So if you could look that up, that would be great.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Let's do all in favor. Oh, pardon, we have a...
I'm sorry, just a question about the proposed continuance. Our next regular LAFCO meeting is scheduled for June. What is that date, Jonathan or Jeff?
June 22nd.
Yes. And so, so my recommendation would be that this item be continued to the next regular meeting of LAFCO. Otherwise, it would be to a special meeting of LAFCO at another date.
Okay, so to clarity, and that stands with the maker and second. Okay, all right. Now, with that clarification and all the questions, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so passes unanimously. Thank you for the discussion. And to our staff, thank you for making sense of what feels like a lot of confusing bits of information that all came in with, and to legal for weighing in on your opinion. All right. Find my agenda again here. All right, next, so that would be, so item 3 then would be continued to next regularly scheduled meeting. We move on to our consent agenda. We have items 4 through 6. There was some public comment on item 6 that was already made this morning, so we'll ask that that not be repeated. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda this afternoon? Anyone online?
Chair, no hands are raised on Zoom.
All right, we'll close public comment on the consent agenda, bring it back to this board.
I'll move the consent.
Second.
We have a motion from Gurley, second from Oglesby. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, passes unanimously. We can move on to old business. Status report on remaining corrective measures by 8 special districts.
Thank you, Chair. This item will be presented by Jeff. Or, I'm sorry, by Jonathan.
Thank you. Chair Askew, members of the commission, I'm presenting this item 7 on a status report on remaining corrective measures by 8 special districts. This item is the source of these corrective measures is through recent MSRs over the last 2.5 years, reported on 8 special districts. These were studies that were completed for special districts in the Spreckles, San Lucas, San Ardo, Soledad, and Greenfield areas. These studies identified a series of actions needed for the districts to meet state legal requirements and improve governance practices. And despite consistent outreach by staff, including monthly communications and in-person meeting attendance, full compliance has not yet been achieved. Progress across 8 districts has been uneven, with some making significant improvements and others still addressing some basic requirements. All 8 districts have now completed the Form 700 filings, and they all report progress towards completing their financial audits. The 3 Greenfield area districts have made the most progress. They've completed budgets, the trainings, website updates, and they've implemented best practices. The Soledad Cemetery District has taken key steps by hiring administrative staff and legal counsel, and they're working towards compliance with training and website requirements. The remaining districts have completed compliant websites, and they are continuing to work towards meeting their training requirements and their audits. Some districts face ongoing challenges, including governance issues, such as board vacancies and canceled meetings due to a lack of a quorum. While the Greenfield districts have only a few remaining items, other districts still have their audits, their trainings, need to amend their bylaws, and implement some best practices. So moving forward, in the next fiscal year, LAFCO staff will offer additional free trainings to the districts and coordinate with regulatory agencies such as the County Auditor Controller's Office, the California State Controller's Office, and the Fair Political Practices Commission to help bring these districts into full compliance. So that is the update on this item, and staff is available for questions.
We'll open it up to public comment first. Is there any public comment questions?
Chair, no hands are raised on Zoom.
All right, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Comments, questions?
I have one question. On page 35 of 72, it says complete financial audits in progress, but they haven't hired an audit firm yet.
Just to clarify, so the financial audits are in progress for those districts. What's the next line item under the financial audits is the performance audit. And just to kind of clarify a little bit between the difference between the financial audit and the performance audit. So the performance audit, financial audit looks at their financial statements and financial paperwork. The performance audit looks at how they're doing that. Looks at their internal procedures and how staff or consultants are doing their accounting work, and would provide recommendations for improvements, is what would be done during a performance audit.
Okay, so one of the things that came up in all of the visits was that there seems to be a definite lack of CPA firms that will do audits for these small districts. I mean, it's a problem because there are so few CPA firms anymore. So what I was going to say that as you come across this, maybe one of the things we could do is compile a list of potential CPA firms, because we had to do that a couple of years ago for us when we went out for an RFP for LAFCO, and maybe just help them with some names and phone numbers of people that they might be able to get a hold of. Because in listening to a couple of these meetings, they don't even know anybody to call. So I just think we could help them a little bit. And I asked CSDA the same thing, and they're supposed to send me a list of audit firms that are doing other smaller districts throughout the state.
I concur with what Commissioner Leffel has said. Since we are the cemetery district, and the public recreation has been working with independent auditor, and they sent us the bill, which is basically $40,000 each for both districts. That's a substantial amount of money, but I understand our accountant, or regular accountant, said it's very difficult to find anybody to do any kind of for special districts audit reviews. So yeah, it would be very helpful if districts would get a list of CPA firms or people that are willing to do that kind of work. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but maybe a couple districts, special districts can get together, and because if they're out there by themselves, then they're going to be eaten up by themselves, right? But maybe that's something we can help them do. Is I don't know legally how it's done, but I'm just throwing it out there. If you can get a group of them together, maybe that's enough. That's big enough for a company to give them each a discount. But going there separate, that's $40,000 for a small district. Knowing it's required, right? They have to, and if we don't help them in a sense, we're going to look up and the bill is going to be paid, and then they're going to suffer going forward. They have to have an audit, but it doesn't have to be that much. So,
does LAFCO have the ability to look at these audits? I mean, we've been kicked. I would love to be questioned about an audit and kick the can down the road forever, which has been going on since I've been on the board with the Greenfield districts. But if you're looking at my financials and I don't want to give them to you, yeah, we can't find anybody. So I've gone over and over this about we do more at a 4-H meeting on our receipts and disbursements than some of these districts do at their meetings. So there's a concern there.
Kate? Just to be clear, though, it's all public, right? I mean, these are public community services districts. So whatever they have produced, we could find at any point in time if they have produced anything. No? Marion, what am I missing?
They're not producing it. Some of them are like 5-6 years that they haven't done.
Right, so that's the challenge, but it's not that something's been produced and we can't get our hands on it.
No.
It's that nothing's been produced.
Yeah. And to Mayor Oglesby, through the chair, I did uncover a man who used to work here, and then he moved because his wife wanted to move, I think, to Milpitas. But he was at one of the districts when we were presenting for the vote, and I talked to him, and he said he would be willing to come down. So to your point, part of it is his travel time, 2 hours down and 2 hours back. So if several districts could be scheduled with him on one day where he could gather information and talk to him, it's a savings for everybody, because their travel time is also charged against you. So I think there are ways to help them, but they do need help.
And I think that this wasn't one of the taskings that was under these improvement plans, but for me, it really brings up the issue of efficiencies with multiple districts that are, not all of these are the same or next to each other, but we do have a number of different districts that serve very similar purposes, be it our cemetery districts or some of our other very small districts. And I think the question, one of the rules for LAFCO is to consider consolidations. It's not a popular topic that anyone ever wants to talk about, but when we are looking at efficiencies and we're looking at meetings and we're looking at trainings and we're looking at how do we make sure that there's transparency in these spaces, sometimes I think there may be a role at some point for us to have a conversation. That's not what's in front of us today, though, but I did just want to say it out loud, given the challenges that we've faced, even feeling, or that I've told we've had feeling that these districts have filling their seats. So I think it's something that at some point we're going to need to maybe add to the conversation. This is receiving a report only. Is there any action needed? No. Okay. So we will, without seeing any other hands raised or anyone making eye contact with me to speak, I will we'll consider this report received and move on to, scroll down, item number 8. Public member and alternate public member appointments to LAFCO continued from the March 23rd, 2026 LAFCO regular meeting.
Thank you, Chair. This item will be presented by our Associate Analyst, Jeff Condit.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, this item is continued from our March 23rd regular LAFCO meeting. As you recall, the terms of seats held by LAFCO Public Member Commissioner Matt Gorley and alternate Public Commissioner Mike Bickle will expire the first Monday of May 2026. And LAFCO is conducting a public member appointment process to fill both seats. We have 4 candidates, including the 2 incumbents, who have moved forward in our selection process to serve the 4-year terms. And the purpose of today's agenda item is to consider and make appointments. The Commission has requested to consider the qualifications of all candidates. 3 of the 4 candidates provided Commission with introductory remarks during the March 23rd meeting. The remaining candidate has been invited to provide introductory remarks during today's meeting. Each public member seat requires the affirmative vote of at least 1 county member, 1 city member, and 1 special district member. And also, each appointment needs at least 4 votes of those commissioners qualified to vote on the matter. The current regular and alternate public members will serve in their seats until the first Monday of May, though the Cortez-Knox-Hertzberg Act does specify that the current members will continue to serve until appointments are finalized and members are sworn in by the Commission. So that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you. And I believe last meeting we heard from 3 of the 4 commissioners, and there was a technology, we lost the connection to Brian Okazaki. Was Brian Okazaki able to be with us or join online today?
Mr. Okazaki
in
is here
person.
today.
Oh, pardon me. My apologies. And I think, did we allow 2 minutes each if someone can help?
We actually allowed 5 minutes.
Oh, we allowed 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. We'll allow 5 minutes for you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Brian.
And if you could come a little closer to the microphone there, that way we've got you on recording.
Good afternoon to the chair, commissioners. My name is Brian Okazaki. I appreciate the accommodation you provided me to appear in person, and I regret that I wasn't able to make it last time. But it gave me time to think really about, okay, now I've got another month. What am I going to do? Stand pat on what I've submitted? And I think I've given basic information. I don't think I would add to that, because I went back and looked, I go, what else can I do? Okay, so I said, well, let me look at the job description. Let me look at the requirements. And I was surprised in a good way that it's almost really the most brilliant job description I've ever seen, because it's so concise. I do have an interest, by the way, in the organization and operations of local government. So I go, oh, okay, I got that one. But what else? There must be a trick. It must be, as counsel referred to, some kind of law school quiz where you don't get much information and you go, oh, I've got this, when you realize there are Easter eggs and time bombs laced throughout. So what do? I go, well, there's something. So I look at this description, I go, oh, this is wonderful, but it really troubled me for a second. I go, I must be able to come up with something else. Of course, you have the numbers, the calculations, the roadmap to where I've been, maybe what I've done, whether I've accomplished anything. I don't know. If you can't know those things very well. There must be some magic thing that I can add. So I go back and someone suggested, okay, oh, well, why don't you look at what this board has done in the past and how it operates, and you think you might know, but maybe you don't really know. And the more I started looking, I thought, well, this isn't helping me, and not because of any thing wrong with the process is that it's because of the process to me. Because if I've learned anything in kind of my years of being exposed to local government at different levels, community services district, and at some point I did realize what LAFCO was and what it did, even because I didn't know. I grew up in a community in southern Orange County where little did I know that I'm kind of in the midst of what LAFCO is all about, what community services districts are all about. I didn't know what they were. Aren't we just governed by cities, counties, mayors, presidents, whatever? I came to find, no, it's not that simple. I was fortunate to work on little districts that I thought, well, this is it. This is the governing body. Well, years later, they become cities, and they become bigger cities. And whereas Orange County was really similar, I believe, to this area when I was exposed to it, might be surprised, a lot of agriculture, orange fields wherever you could, as far as you could see, eucalyptus trees all over the place, strawberry fields everywhere. And then you start seeing changes, and you kind of wonder, how does this happen? Is this a district? Is it a city? Is it a township? And kind of you got one foot, kind of what I thought of as kind of the Wild West too, because things were done really kind of seat of the pants. I would say this would be late 60s, early 70s. And it worked. It worked for a long, long time, and there are still vestiges of that kind of system in place, and I think they're in place for the best of reasons. Where I grew up, you had to have both feet, in these different generations, and this kind of period where things were really changing, and they changed so quickly, and I see that here too, and people I know who've moved here. I didn't grow up here. I do have a pretty intimate relationship with this area, with the valley and with the peninsula. It will take me too long to describe, but it's a family relationship, and it means something to me personally. And so when I stopped, because the more I looked, the more I realized that, hey, what I saw, the process is still the same. It's solid. It's it's statutory. There are regulations, but it's always consistent. And so the more I looked, the more I realized that this is always going to be a case-by-case basis. But what is constant is the process. And even in these really tiny districts that I got to witness and maybe even assist in some way, some small way, whether they operated bombastically, civilly, argumentatively, that's fine. That's part of the process. There's always this mechanism that's going to have to rule the day every single time. And I'm no expert in this field. I know a little bit about local government. I know how this works. I know what this is, and this can be very intimidating to the public, this whole process. And the thing that I'm left with in my kind of intermittent but sometimes immersive experience is that it was still kind of dictated, that's a horrible word to use, but controlled by the government. I mean, I can't make that sound good. It just comes out bad every time I hear it. But it's like the attendance, for instance, at these meetings, at what I experienced, where I always thought, and what's why I'm drawn to this position, is that wouldn't it be part of my job, if you will, to make sure that the public, however we define that, but I see actual people, I see myself, at least have access to the information on an equal basis. Thank you.
We're out of time. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to this board, and this was a continued item from, sorry, I'm scrolling back up, continued item from our last meeting. So let's open it up to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board. So any public comment? There's no one in chambers. Is there anyone online?
Chair, no hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay, great. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Comments?
Go ahead, Kate.
Leffel, then Daniels.
I think we've heard now from all four of the candidates, and I'm prepared to make a motion. Do you want to comment before I make it?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I appreciate that we just heard from a third candidate. I had some really strong feelings about the two other candidates that we were presented with in this vote, and it is actually in some ways related to the earlier decision that we made regarding the special district alternate position. And folks like Mayor Oglesby hear me say this a lot at the Water District, that I am increasingly concerned about the politicization of our bodies that are elected and appointed to serve the public. And so, I'm also been very clear about why this position is really important to me. And this position is really important to me because there is perhaps nothing more important on the Monterey Peninsula than solving our water supply challenges. And I am very disturbed by the latent power vote and the denial to activate the district's latent powers, the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District's latent powers. But then when I'm presented with an opportunity to support Mr. Gorley or Mr. DeLappa, I think they're equally political, right? You have the same challenge with both candidates presented, whether we're talking about politicizing our water supply or politicizing an annexation of a place like occurring in Gonzales. And so I wasn't prepared to support either candidate today, and I certainly don't want. I mean, Orange County is not my role model for what we want to do in Monterey County. So hopefully the intention was that the best practices from Orange County are to preserve our ag land and our farmland and not make decisions by the seat of our pants, but instead engage in good, orderly planning, which is what we do as this body. So I'm not prepared to support the two candidates I discussed, and I'm open to hearing about folks' thoughts on the third.
I'll jump in, I guess. I'm processing, I think, what I just heard Commissioner Daniels share, and I'm also trying to make sense of the previous item, and there was maybe I should ask a question. The ballots that were withdrawn. So there's no accusation of any challenges to the ballots that were cast in the original. Different, mixing up my things. Okay, it's a public member. So okay. Pardon that. So bringing it back into what Supervisor Daniels was just sharing about, I think this is the decisions that are made here at LAFCO. They do have really tremendous impact on what happens in our community, what happens for the future of our community. And you had mentioned, Kate, that the reason that you sit on this commission, the reason I sit on this commission, really the only reason I engaged in political dynamics to be appointed to this commission was because of concern about the water issues. And I think that how that's played out and how that continues to play out is of critical concern and highly politicized in ways that aren't helpful. How we move forward in this case, I would say, I've appreciated working with the current member. I think there's a lot of history and value that comes with that. And yet the reality from where I sit is that it is important that we have people who sit on this commission who are prepared to take the information that's in front of us, take the facts, consider the facts, follow the process, and remain aligned within those parameters. And I'm not sure that that's what I've seen. So I'm also not interested in engaging in a political appointment from someone else who's made very clear positions on other things. So I continue to struggle, I think, in much of the ways that I started off struggling last month. And just want to be transparent about those realities that I'm trying to represent here, where we stay aligned with our policies, where we are clear about the direction that we're headed in, where we consider the facts in front of us, and that's how decisions are made. That's, I think, the biggest issue for me sitting here in this vote and in all of our votes, to be honest. So those are my comments. We'll take it back to Commissioner Leffel.
So as someone who does consider all the facts before they vote, I would like to move that we nominate Mr. Matt Gorley as the regular public member for the commission for the next 4 years.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need a, I guess let's do a roll call vote on this, just since it sounds like there's going to be some splits.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Daniels?
No.
Commissioner Donahue?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindley?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
No.
Vice Chair Leffel?
Yes.
Chair Rudascu?
No.
We'll see you in June.
So, Madam Chair, we have, we did not get the 4 votes, or the 3 votes from the 3 different categories. So the vote is not passed.
I'm going to look to legal counsel.
So this is the scenario where if there is a stalemate, the individual in the seat per section Government Code 56334, the term is 4 years and until the appointment and qualification of successors. So until this matter is resolved, our current members will hold their positions.
Okay. And the would we need action to take it back out to solicit, like to reopen the process?
I think this item simply has to reappear before this body. But I'll look to. I said Commissioner Daniels, but I meant to say Ms. McKenna. I apologize. I'm looking.
I'll look to.
Do you have a thought on that?
On whether this needs to come back?
On whether it goes back out for new applications.
Whether it goes back out for new applications.
I don't believe we're at that point yet. I believe, and I want to look to staff and back to council here, but I believe that there are other candidates on our list that could be voted upon for the primary member. And so I think that's something that our commission could do today.
So is there discussion or a motion to consider a different, would there be consensus on a different candidate? I'm also hearing that there's not.
Well, I don't know if anyone said anything, but this is the way I look at it. I look at it as though it didn't pass today, and so it comes back. And it comes back until a majority says we may need more people or another motion for another individuals. But I don't want to prejudge that, right? And so prejudging it is saying, well, let's solve it today and put someone else. If someone else's name was thrown out there, then we can vote on that. But let's not throw anybody's name out just to do the process. It's in the staff report. If it was not settled today, it comes back at a different meeting.
Okay, and I'm not seeing anyone looking to move for consideration of a different candidate. So I guess that leaves us with the language that
Stalemate.
a stalemate, but a stay put. And we would have this return at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Okay. And we'll say thank you to all of our candidates who've applied and desire to serve, continue serving. And we can move on to our next item, which, scrolling down, takes us to item number 9, a review of state law updates from General Counsel. This would be SB 827, SB 707, and SB 489.
And so I will just jump in ahead of our staff if they aren't too offended by that. I'll keep this as brief as I can. I know the hour is late, and these are 3 bills that were just sort of as a general FYI. I'm imagining, given most of you have other roles, you may have heard of some of these, but the basic takeaways for us aren't substantial. So this is more of an FYI for yourselves. There is a new fiscal and financial training requirement. You can connect with our staff. They can probably steer you in the correct direction to get those accomplished. That's the SB 827. The big one that you may have heard of is SB 707, significant changes to the Brown Act. Thankfully for this legislative body, we're not going to suffer the way that others have with the extra hoops they have to jump through, but it does clarify and provide some additional rules about teleconferencing for if you're unable to attend due to a illness of a friend, or not a friend, a family member, or other qualifying individual in your life. So all that's been hardened into some law that is a bit more difficult for the staff to wield, but for you on the dais, it shouldn't change too much. And then the permit streamlining, which simply requires applications for anything be posted available online. So our LAFCO staff have dutifully posted all of our applications online, and we are in conformance with that. So that's your 3-part update for today on item 9. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any comments or questions? Right, and I know the Brown Act is not one that we have to get trained on, but are you saying there's a training requirement for AB or SB 827? If there is a training requirement for any of these,
Yes.
you guys will let us know, and then remind us until we are at full compliance. I think would be important.
We'll be adding it to our tracking list so that if there's any requirements you haven't met, you'll be given.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on.
Through the chair, I do have a question for our council. I think in that Brown Act, everyone is supposed to be provided with a copy of the Brown Act. And I was just going to say, maybe you can find out how many of us did, so there doesn't have to be another copy. Like I got one, I don't need another one. And I don't know who else got one through another agency, but it just seems like that's kind of a cost and staff time saver if we don't all have to get 2 or 3 of them because of different agencies. So I'm going on record. I have one, I don't need one.
Understood.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 10, which is a report on activities of the California Association of the Local Agency Formation Commission. And I'll pass it over to Kate.
Right, and once again, Jeff will provide this report.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is a report on activities of the California Association of the Local Agency Formation Commission, CalLAFCO. The CalLAFCO board recently had a retreat in February. The staff or the agenda report does include an attachment that gives a summary of their priorities for the next 2 years, their vision. They're looking at prioritizing education for their members, as well as an emphasis on a focused legislative presence. So that is their focus. There is an upcoming CalLAFCO annual staff workshop that will take place May 6th through 8th in Pismo Beach. Executive Officer Kate McKenna, Principal Analyst Jonathan Brinkman, and myself will be in attendance. In addition, Executive Officer McKenna will be presenting in a panel session entitled Developing Future LAFCO Leaders. Another exciting program that CalLAFCO is undertaking is a mentorship program. They recently launched this program, and both Principal Analyst Brinkman and myself are participating. Principal Analyst Brinkman as a mentor and myself as a mentee. So that should be exciting. We'll present in the future regular meetings on that progress. And then regarding the SB 827 training requirement, as General Counsel mentioned, there is a 2-hour training requirement for that SB 827. LAFCO has recently partnered with Best and Krieger to develop a training. And so that is free access to LAFCO members. So staff will be forwarding you directions for accessing that training in the coming days. So we do have a few action items for this item. First is authorizing annual LAFCO conference attendance. So as I mentioned, the annual conference will take place October 21st through the 23rd at the Sheraton Grand in Sacramento. We're asking the authorization of attendees by 3 staff, 1 general counsel, and all commissioners who express interest in attending. We did have funding of up to 10 attendees in our fiscal year 2026-2027 final budget, which we're looking at in item 11 in today's agenda. Next action item to be looked at by this commission is to designate the regular and alternate voting delegates to cast votes during the regional election caucus and other business activities at LAFCO during the conference in October. Staff is recommending that Vice Chair Marianne Leffel be put forward as the voting delegate and 1 other commissioner who will attend as the alternate delegate. Also, we recommend designating the LAFCO executive officer as a backup to the alternate delegate. The next action item is to consider nominations for LAFCO Board of Directors. We're recommending the nomination of Supervisor Chair Wendy Rudascu for the LAFCO Board seat. And the action would authorize the chair and staff to complete and submit the required nomination form. Lastly, we ask this commission to consider LAFCO's 2026 Achievement Awards nomination, and we recommend putting forth Executive Officer Kate McKenna for the Lifetime Achievement Award. That concludes my report, and I'll turn it over to you, Chair, and I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you. I just had one question about the 3 staff members. I know last year Reed was able to attend. I'm not sure if that's including Reed in that 3 staff members. We'll have...
Yeah, 3 staff and then general counsel as well.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry, I missed that part of it. Wanted to make sure we're covered there. Thank you. And then I just fully support Marianne as our incoming chair, and you'll be chair of our LAFCO at that meeting, that there is a new process by which the board of LAFCO is people are eligible for serving on the board, and so all seats will be up for election at this October meeting, and so figuring out how we work to make sure we've got the right 4 that we're approving or nominating, voting for, I think will be important so that there's some continuity of leadership on the LAFCO board, since there'll be like I said, a new process in place. I just wanted to comment on that. But thank you for the presentation. We'll open it up. Let me open it up to public comment really quickly, and then we'll come back to the board. Is there any public comment on this item?
Chair, no hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comment and we'll go to Oglesby.
Just a quick question. I want to appreciate you for your leadership, Chair, here and at LAFCO. You're coming off. Does the immediate past president don't sit on the board?
No, I would be running for my board seat again this year to continue on as the past president role.
No, I just want to make sure you bring a lot of leadership up there, so thank you.
Well, and I'll just say, there's been a tremendous amount of transition that has occurred at LAFCO in the past 2 years. When I say tremendous, I mean tremendous amount of leadership at the staff level, at the board level, and really trying to identify what the role of LAFCO is in how it serves its member LAFCOs, which is really us, it's you, and the staff at LAFCOs. And I think we've tried really hard, and Kate has such high respect from all of her colleagues across the state that there's really has been a dual role for us to play in terms of keeping people at the table when a lot of folks are wanting to get up and walk away from the table. So I think we've succeeded in that, steadying the ship, and now it's just going to be keeping a solid group of leadership in place that wants to continue the work without tossing anything overboard without shaking things up too much. So, yeah, but thank you. Any other comments?
I'll move staff's recommendations 1 through 6.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Gorley, a second from Oglesby, and all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Oh, we have a question. Okay, well, we voted, but we'll open it back up for a question.
I'll vote for it, but on number 3 on the report, it says authorized attendance of 2 staff. And since we'll have 3 staff.
That was a typo.
Okay, I'm just reading it. That's why I'm asking if we're voting on it the way it's written. So we're voting on it with 3 staff members.
I believe the staff report itself is accurate, but the agenda was incorrect. So thank you for clarifying that for us.
Okay, I'm good with voting yes.
Good catch on that. Thank you. Yeah, I think I was looking at something where I saw different numbers as well. Great. Okay, I think that moves, and I'll just take a moment to, this is, we'll be nominating our very own Kate McKenna for the Lifetime Achievement Award. So it would be wonderful to have as many of our commission members present as possible. The commission, the conference will be in Sacramento, so it won't be a huge flight or anything, just a drive. And we would love to have everyone present if you're able to join us. Okay, moving right along to item number 11. This is our final annual budget 26-27 second hearing.
Thank you, Chair. And Jonathan will present this second and final hearing for the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Thank you.
Chair Rude Askew and Commissioners, this item represents the second of 2 public hearings for adoption of our 2026-2027 annual budget. The proposed budget was previously reviewed and recommended for approval by the Budget and Finance Committee at their February 19th meeting. And the Commission held the first public hearing for the proposed budget at their March 23rd meeting and circulated the proposed budget to local agencies for their review and comment. The budget supports implementation of the Commission's annual work program. The total proposed expenditures in the budget are $1,157,000, reflecting a modest 0.8% increase over the current fiscal year. In terms of funding, the funding is shared equally among the county, cities, and special districts, each contributing $379,000. And this shared cost is a slight increase from last year. It's a 0.4% increase. And then the additional revenue sources I want to note include application fees and interest income. Public notice for both hearings, the previous months and today's hearing, was provided through multiple channels. And the proposed budget was distributed to the local agencies. As of now, we have received no comments on the budget from our local agencies, though the input remains open through the close of this hearing today. And that concludes staff's report. Staff's available for any questions. Thank you.
Let's open it up to public comment on this public second hearing on the budget in case anyone has comment for us. There's no one in chambers. Is there anyone online?
No hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for any additional discussion on our 26-27 annual budget. Seeing no one making eye contact, no, got a shake of a head, okay.
From finance, I'm just going to say, I think we're really proud of staff in working together that we were able to hold the increase to such a low amount this year. And looking at some of these smaller districts, they're struggling so much as our cities and our county with deficits. So I think everything we could do to hold this budget with the smallest increase was commendable. And I really want to thank staff for working really hard on it. And Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of the budget, the way we're bringing it forward.
Happy to consider a motion.
I would move that we approve the 2026-2027 budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Level, a second from Gorley. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There was some silence over here. The thumbs up?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
On the question, though, just for,
Yep.
I'm looking at the attachment, the resolution, resolution number 2607? And as much as I would love to sign it, it has my name on the back. I mean, is that?
Oh, it's all you, Ian.
You know, I try to read, try to pay attention to protocol, respecting the chair. I would support if we make the changes to the proper name, which is our chair.
You're not the presiding officer?
Not this go around.
All right, we'll consider that a typo to be corrected. Yeah, perfect, thank you. Okay, thank you for noting that. Okay, with that, we can move on to, thank you, our Executive Officer Communications.
Thank you. I have no additional communications today.
Are you sure, Kate? We've got you've got you here for a little bit longer. This is your chance.
All right, I'll let you know. I participated in the Big Sur Marathon yesterday, and I finished.
And you
on time.
completed. That's incredible. Yeah, really
And
incredible.
she walked in here of her own accord.
Right. You're still up and about. Fantastic. Thank you. And then, are there any commissioner comments this afternoon? Any commissioner comments? We'll make the round. Seeing none, we can move on to adjournment to our next meeting. Our next regularly scheduled LAFCO meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 22nd, 2026 at 3 p.m. Right here at the Monterey County Government Center, as well as live streamed on Zoom. So we'll see you then. Thank you.